Welcome back to Seriously Suzanne. My name's Jake, and this is Suzanne Gose. We're talking about homeschooling. This is season 2 of the podcast. This is Ep.3. So today we're going to be talking about finding a job after you get out of high school when you're doing homeschooling, transitioning from public school to homeschooling, and then maybe some. So whenever you talk to folks about, like, let's say they have their 15-year-old who's in high school, like in a public school, how do you kind of coach them into getting into the homeschooling?
So they've been in public school their whole life?
Right.
Okay, so I basically just kind of remind them that it's an experiment. The public school is more of an experiment than homeschooling. All of our patriots, back in the day, homeschooling was the norm, and public schooling is only 250, 270 years old. And so that's the weird thing. And if you look at the normal life, here we are, you're 20 and I'm 48, and we hang out, and then we hang out with all different ages. So the weird thing is to be with 30 different people that are all the same exact age. Like, since you've graduated, have you ever been in a room with 30 people that are all 20? Right. Me neither. I have literally never been in a room with 30 people that were my same age ever. And so I try to help them to kind of break open their thought process, because we've all been on this factory, right? I was on the factory. I went to public school, graduated from public school, top of my class, went to university, and I was with all the same people, same type of people, the same age for my entirety of my life. And then suddenly I have to get around and get along with all these other people that are different ages. And I didn't know how, because other than siblings and family reunions, you don't really experience that. So that's kind of the first thing, is just helping them to recognize public school is a culture. Homeschool is a culture. Your family life has a culture. You have a church culture. Everybody has kind of their own culture, and you're just switching cultures now. And that is very scary. So I validate their fears, totally legitimate. And then I help them to see that, hey, I was a public school teacher, and that's why I homeschooled.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of kids who they think it's weird or just maybe scary, or like, oh, I'm not going to hang out with any of my friends anymore.
Right.
So there's a lot of fears with that. There's homeschool groups that you can definitely go to and be a part of that, and that's what we did.
Yep.
You made one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And I do tell them that. I say, come on over, come meet my kids. And so that's always been so helpful. Having 5 kids, 6.5 years apart, I would say, what ages do you have? And I typically would have one of y'all were that age. I'm like, don't worry, they're super friendly. And all 5 of you were super friendly, always accepting, and said, yeah, come with me. And they were always shocked, like, wow, this kid is normal. They're nice, they're funny, and they accept me the way I am. There's no expectation of, you have to be a jock, or you have to be a cheerleader, or you have to be a nerd, or you have to be this. Homeschooling is really very inclusive, and I don't think most of public school is.
No, I remember going to like playgrounds whenever I was probably 8 or 9, and out in College Station, and like I would go and try to make friends with kids, and they would just look at me weird, or maybe like I don't know, getting in fights and stuff like that. Not really like badly, but like, right. They were rude and they were mean. I didn't understand. Like, I'm just trying to hang out and be y'all's friend, and y'all just want to beat the crap out of me. Like, what is going on? So yeah, it's definitely a culture change for sure. I've never, I don't think I experienced that with any homeschool kids.
Right.
Not to say that all of the kids were bad. I definitely had some friends.
Sure. But on the whole, I think a public school culture kind of trains you to be really defensive, and have to feel like you have to protect yourself, because what is this person after? And for homeschoolers in general, there's not that. Everybody's just like, we're just living life, getting along, and there's not this culture challenge. So anyhow, so that's my first step, is I say, come on over, come meet some other kids that are homeschooled, meet the moms, and recognize that we're all in this together, and we're all trying to help each other. Nobody's trying to put you down or make you feel bad. We're all trying to raise each other up. It's not a competition. It's just a journey.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's say, like, you got them out of the public school system. and now what? Like, so like, okay, I've made the transition. What do I buy? Who do I talk to? What's the first couple of steps I need to take to start homeschooling the kids?
Right. So with high school, it's a little bit scary because there are transcripts, there are futures. You do need to look at, you know, what are you required to do in your state? Every state has different requirements for high school and what it means to graduate from a homeschool or a high school. So some states have umbrella things that you have to, you have to hire somebody to say that you're legitimately okay to teach your child, which I think is odd because we live in Texas and Texas actually trusts us more than the public school to do a better job than the public school would. They think that if we're going to spend our time and money, then we're gonna try hard to do a good job. So that's cool in Texas, but you do need to check the laws. There's typically some sort of organization that has them, Facebook, Google is your friend. And then after that, you choose your method, right? You find out what kind of homeschooler am I? Do I want to do it in the morning, afternoon, evening? And just kind of recognize that you really have the freedom to do it almost any way, depending on what state you live in. And then you just start, right? You choose a starting date. So if you're in the middle of the school year and you're pulling them out and it's like Thanksgiving time, I would not start till January. I would just enjoy the holidays, talk, involve your kid as much as possible because teenagers want control. And so just like when they're toddlers and they want to wear shorts and it's snowing outside, and you can say, okay, well, would you like to wear the shorts on top of your sweatpants or under your sweatpants? And so both options are correct, right? So I did that a lot with you because you always wanted to wear crazy stuff.
Oh, I don't remember that.
You don't remember wanting to wear a tuxedo
Oh yeah,
to the skate park or
yeah,
wear your military uniform to the grocery store.
yeah. I mean, I remember wearing that stuff, but to me, that's normal. So yeah.
Exactly. So I would say, would you like to wear it on this day or this day? And so I didn't ever tell you, no, you're not wearing it. I would say, what day would you, and I would give you two choices that are totally legitimate and I am okay with. And that way you had control to choose which day, but you didn't know that I was actually in control. I let you think you're in control and that was fine. Same idea with teenagers. You feel
You
like
manipulated me.
I did not manipulate you. I,
Yes, you did.
but look how great it is now.
It's a relationship of lies. Don't listen to it, people. I'm just kidding.
Well, same idea though, right? So I would say, okay, these are the science curriculum that you need to choose from. Do you want to do physiology and anatomy, or do you want to do food science? And I knew both of those were probably choices that you would like with your bodybuilding and your workouts and all that stuff. And you got to choose which one you wanted to do. And so then I had a buy-in rather than it was like, hey, you have to do science. That wasn't the question. It was, which science would you like to do? Both were right options. So that's what I would say for moms and parents of teenagers. Give them options, give them control.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Are there anything to just is there anything to stay away from when you're first starting out? Like maybe there's some stuff that everyone thinks is the new best thing, but is really could be harmful.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we want to choose, we want to hit the easy button. And so the easiest thing is to put them on a computer and do everything online. And, we've seen now, right, since 2020 to now, everybody's recognizing that that's a huge cause of depression. That's a huge cause of lack of attention span, sleeplessness, insomnia. All the screen time that we have is really bad for our brains and bad for our bodies. So I would really recommend if you're going to do an online program, that's okay, but try and get it off, do something offline as well. Make sure they're getting up every 30 minutes. They're not sitting all day. It's bad for their neck, bad for their back, bad for their mental state. You don't want their whole life to be virtual. So try to at least mix it up somewhat. Like if you do math online, then do history out of a book. Find a group to do things with. You have a local co-op. There's volunteer programs. There's so many ways to involve them in the world around them. You don't want to think, okay, check, school is a job. And don't try to recreate public school, what they're used to in public school at home. It's impossible. There are not 30 other kids that are going to, bully them or whatever. Like you don't want to recreate public school at home.
Right.
Recognize that it's just a journey and you have all these options. So I think
Start bullying your child so they don't get homesick.
that's right. They don't want to feel weird. Nobody's being mean to me. This is odd. I feel happy. Um, I guess that's it.
Okay, gotcha. So stay off the screens. as much as you can. All right. So something that I wanted to talk about a little bit that I think a lot of people don't really understand, and something that I was worried about when I was in high school was finding a job after high school. I really didn't have that hard of time at all. A lot of people think like, oh, well, you don't have your official government documents, so like you can't get a job. Like nobody really cared. So as long as I graduated high school, which I did, um, and had my diploma or whatever, uh, I don't think anyone asked me about it. I don't think anyone even thought twice, you know. So I think they just care if you're intelligent, you know how to speak, if you can carry yourself well, then they're just going to kind of automatically assume that everything's legit, which it is.
Right.
So,
And you show up. I think that was the biggest thing that you said after you graduated and moved out, and you said, "My gosh, my coworkers, like half of them don't show up very often." And because you showed up, you would always, you were elevated in the organization, whatever job you had, whatever, I mean, whatever company it was. It seemed like they were really quickly like, "Wow, Jake, you're really good." And you're like, "I'm just showing up on time."
yeah, and I would work hard whenever I was working. So, it's I think that's definitely a huge important thing to teach kids because in homeschooling, you're not being pushed left and right by a bunch of different folks, and it's not a super competitive environment. You kind of have to, it's kind of like being an entrepreneur. You're going to learn as much as you want to learn. You're going to be as successful as you want to be. And so if you're not pushing your kid, then he's just going to end up pushing himself, and that'll help him out in the long run. He's figuring out subjects that he wants to learn. At least that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah.
I know a lot about a lot of subjects that you weren't really teaching.
Right. Yeah. And that's because that was your personality. I have five opposites. And so some of you I do have to push and I do have to check off and I do have to keep accountable. And then others like you, I didn't worry about. Like I knew your history was, that your knowledge of history was through the roof. Science was a little bit more of a concern for me. And so I put you in classes here and there. We live on a farm. And so you learn science naturally. And then, of course, and then whenever it's up your alley with biology and physical body stuff from muscles and things like that, and then of course with the scoliosis and everything, we learned a ton. Wish we didn't have to know all that stuff, but life was learning, and you were always curious. So yeah, when you have a curious kid, it's very easy to homeschool, and you did keep yourself accountable most of the time. But I didn't not check either. I always checked as well every week.
Right. So you want to talk about?
Um, Other transitions. So transitioning from graduation, like what else is there? Yeah, getting a job was something, but any other things that maybe I could have done better. Maybe I could have prepared you a little bit better in some areas whenever you were on your own and you got your own apartment and all this stuff that you weren't really ready for, and I could have done a better job with.
Oh, I mean, taxes. I don't really know about that.
Okay.
So, or I don't know. I figured out stuff pretty easily. It wasn't that hard. I feel like this stuff isn't that hard. It's just a lot of phone calls. You just need to know how to make phone calls, and then you're pretty much good. Everyone wants to text now, so
Right. Well, yeah, you're resourceful. And so that's something, teaching your child resourcefulness. And I did want to do, because your last semester at home was filled up with things, with scoliosis therapy and all that kind of stuff. That is something I was aware that you needed a little bit more financial literacy, maybe a little bit more on budgeting. But yeah, you're resourceful and you managed it and you figured out, oh, I can't buy everything I want whenever I want. I do have to put aside my rent money first and my electricity money. And so, yeah, okay, good. I'm glad to hear that, because that was a concern of mine. I was like, man, I did not give him the financial literacy that I gave Mitch, the firstborn, because your life was different than his.
right, right. And Mitch lived with
That's
some
right.
folks for about a year, and I
Yeah,
kind of immediately went to an apartment. So
that's true. He
I
did
think
not have
that
any bills to pay, and they just took it right out of his salary. So he didn't have to manage that immediately. That's a good point. Yeah,
right.
there's lots of ways to graduate and go forward. It doesn't always have to be college. It doesn't always have to be military. That you can graduate, move out, and make it on your own if you're resourceful.
Right, absolutely. So I guess teaching your kids resourcefulness is pretty huge.
What about leaving the family behind, like your siblings and stuff? Was that about what you expected, or like how often you see everybody now?
I thought I'd see y'all much less than I expected to, and I never got homesick, but I just liked hanging out with y'all. And a lot of people out in the real world are pretty crappy, so I had trouble finding good, valuable people, and so I would just come. I started coming back. I didn't come back for a while
No.
after I first moved out. I was probably gone for 3 or 4 months, and then started coming back for Friday night dinners. And, um, yeah, so I think your family unit's going to be a lot stronger if you're homeschooled. You're gonna want to come back. I feel like if you're a really strong family, rather than I feel like everything in America has become a corporation.
Mm.
Each family is a corporation, and so all your kids are kind of like your employees, and they're branching off and they're going to go start their own companies, and you're not going to go visit your own company back there. Like
Mm.
it's I don't know. That's kind of the way I think people view it now. It's not like, hey, that's my flesh and blood, that's my family, that's a guy that can help me out financially whenever I get in trouble. It's not like I love that guy. It's that guy can help me. So
Mm. Yeah, you've talked
I
about that before. Everything kind of being transactional, like all relationships seem to you to be transactional, and what can each person get from the other person? And that was sad for me to find out that that's how society is now for young folks. But I think you're right. The more I looked at it, I was like, you know what? That's not him. That's that's what I see too in your age range, 20 and 30-year olds. That's a shame. But
It is a shame. It sucks. Relationships shouldn't be transactional. They should be out of love and kindness, and you're doing it because you want to do it. It's not I'm doing it because I want to get something out of this guy, or maybe he owes me one day. And that's how your family should be. You
right.
shouldn't be nice to your family or come and visit so you can get stuff, or presents or whatever.
Right. Yeah, and the first 6 months I think you did, you just came home for any kind of special event, like if we invited you specifically. And sometimes you couldn't. You were like, I have to work, I can't come. And that was fine. We expected that. Same with Mitch. Mitch is more of an introvert, and so he doesn't come home as often. And he lives further away. So there's that. But but yeah, I think the more you come home, I mean, everything is just more fun when you're around, because more fun people makes more fun. It's exponential. And so, we have the two that are still home, and then we add you to the mix, and everything's just more fun. So we like having you around, and we wouldn't invite you as much if we didn't. But so,
Good to
so
know.
there's a cue. Be fun to be around, and your parents will want you around. And parents, be fun to be around, right? Like, don't
Yeah.
ride your kid all the time. He's not under your jurisdiction anymore. He gets to choose whether or not you have input.
Yeah, that's a great point. Parents really decide how much their kid comes around.
Hmm.
Uh, because I don't know, when I was younger and Dad was a little bit harder to be around, I didn't want to hang out with
Of
him.
course.
But now we're much closer, and he's not insane, so it's a lot better.
Well, he was always training you. He was always looking at how to improve you as a young man and help you out. And now he's your friend, and he's your father,
Right,
but y'all are more your peers now. And before, you were not peers at all.
right. Yeah, no, I was an ant, and he was a boot. So yeah, but it's much better now. Everything's pretty cool. So I'm very happy about that. I'm happy with the relationship that I have with y'all, and Audie and Liesel. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I definitely think that after you move out, you should definitely go back and try to rekindle that relationship. And it's so much better. It's so much better after you move out with your parents. So
Interesting. Yeah, I guess so. Because I mean, we're fairly dominant, strict parents, and so, and on purpose, like we knew that was our style, and still is our style, because we want you to not want to be under our authority. We want you to want to push out and be your own person and be in control. We don't want you to say, "Oh, it's so easy back there. Let me just hang out here forever." And so that our goal was to create independence and a desire for independence. And I think we've done that.
Right. And you recognize, now that you're an adult and your brain works finally, when you're a kid, you're like, I think back when I'm a kid and I just didn't understand anything. Like, I was an idiot, and most kids are. Most kids are really stupid. And so now that I'm an adult and I was like, oh, that's what they were trying to teach me, I get it. And now I'm not angry at you. I'm understanding and thankful. It's like,
Right.
oh, okay, you made my life hard because I was being dumb,
Right.
not because you wanted to make my life hard.
No, we
And
wanted
I
you.
now recognize that,
Right. We wanted you to do better. And the Lord even says that in the word, no discipline is enjoyable at the time. And of course not. And even now, my relationship with my mom just continues to improve because as you age, you get kind of closer in your experiences, and so I have adult children now. She's had adult children for a long time, so we're able to connect on more and more things. And as you age, I hope we all continue to get closer. Um, Even if it's not physically and we're always around each other, we can understand each other better because our experiences are similar. And I think we're on the way. And I do think homeschooling is a huge part of that. Like I barely saw my parents growing up because I was at school. So
Right. Yeah. They were at their job and you were at your job.
yes.
And then you met for about 30 minutes a day.
Hmm.
And, it's like a job, like, oh, let's have our dinner break.
Yep.
And I'm going to go hit the rack.
Hmm.
And then I'm going to go back to work. And then on the weekend, we're going to clean the house because
Yep.
that's my job. And then I'm going to go to Sunday church because that's my job.
That's a good point. Yeah. And so homeschooling really provides a lot of freedom to choose what your daily life looks like. And so I'm so glad that so many more people are recognizing that I can choose when to wake up and how to spend my time and what kind of job and where my kids are. I can choose that. And I'm very grateful that I got to choose to be around y'all so much and see every bit. I mean, some of it was absolutely hard and gutting, but I'm still glad I was there. I'm glad I know like a lot of it. I still missed out on a lot. Like y'all had a lot of stuff happen that I was like, what? Where was I? And they're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was before you got up in the morning, or that was after you went to bed. I was like, oh.
Right.
So
Well, I think it's insane. The whole concept of a school is insane to me because, all right, let's take your kid and throw them in with 400 other kids who are, you don't know them, and then put them in the care of some random chick who's like just graduated college. Like, you don't know what's going to happen there.
yeah.
Like, what if the teacher's a pervert?
which
What the heck,
which
Which a lot of them are.
sometimes happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was developed because of the class system and trying to give the poor people a chance to get a
Yeah.
basic education. And I do want the masses educated. It's a good plan. I just don't want to be a part of the masses.
Right. Yeah. Do you want a low quality basic education, or do you want to educate your kids with stuff that you think is valuable for them to know? Not, well, the Earth was founded, and and it blew up, and the Big Bang happened, and dudes are chicks, and women are men. Like, you're just confusing the crap out of people. Sorry, I know we're not trying to get into politics here,
It's
so
almost
I'll.
always. I mean, when you talk about public school, what is it? It's government school, so it's always going to be political. And I do think that's a good point for us to kind of maybe finish on is that really think about whatever you're doing, whatever organization you're a part of, whatever culture you choose to be a part of, vote with your feet. If you don't like the culture that your kid is in, change his culture. You get to move him to where you are comfortable with him. And yeah, it costs you something. It costs. It's sacrificial. And people looking for free homeschool, man, I don't know. I think it should cost. I think you should be willing to put money into it because this is super valuable and you get to be a part of it. So, you pay money for food and low food cost equals low quality. Same idea. This is food for the mind. It should cost you something.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's a great place to end on. Thank you for being on your show, and thank you for having me on to host it. If y'all will hit the like button on the podcast, follow us on Spotify, anywhere you are. Spotify and YouTube is where we're on, right? Or are we on everything?
We're at everything. Anchor, Apple,
Okay.
all the podcasts. Podchaser.
Okay. Well, follow us on everything. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Message her with questions, but not too many. So we'll catch you in the next episode.
All right.
Thanks.
See you next week.